Oh, so you took over an existing coffee shop.
Yeah, it was a coffee shop and hot yoga in the back.
Okay.
It was gross. It was real gross.
That's what people were doing.
The back room was hot, so I understand why.
After a session of hot yoga, that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
Just a nice steaming cup of.
Have some hot coffee and a breakfast burrito after your hot yoga. I don't know. Maybe people do that. I have never done that.
Here we go.
Welcome to Inside the Hive with Kyle and Brandon. Join us as we explore business, real estate, current events, and personal growth. We dive into the latest trends, offer valuable insight, and share stories. Thanks for tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Inside the Hive with Kyle and Brandon, where we dive deep into the world of commercial real estate, business success, personal growth, so forth. I'm Kyle Gorman.
I'm Brandon Layman. And today is a special day. We are thrilled to have a special guest with us, Tanner Stevens, an owner of successful string of coffee shops throughout the Kansas City area. And we want to hear today about his journey, how he got into it, why he got into it, and the way that he structured it to open up multiple locations.
Yeah, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice to be out at a table with you guys from behind the camera.
Yeah, I mean, you helped set up everything that's in this room, so I think being the first guest is appropriate.
Let's do it.
So let's go ahead and get started with your background, Tanner. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you even got into the coffee shop business to begin with?
Yeah, coffee and like life and business has always been about people for me. Originally, our first shop that my spouse and I ever opened with our business partner, there's this like kind of void in the Kansas City area in this cool River Market district. There's a lot of cool other things happening, lots of cool bars, lots of like new housing going in, young family, like young professionals, young adults kind of moving into this neighborhood and really no coffee or like kind of community space outside of like the nighttime bar scene. There's nothing like during the day.
It's a big bar scene.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool places, a lot of good food down there, like a lot of farm to table stuff. There's a restaurant called the Farmhouse that did like incredible farm to table food stuff and had a great bar and a menu for everyone at night. There's nothing during the day down there.
Oh, okay.
And so like really just creating space for people to come and enjoy and be themselves and hang out and like have a staple place in the community was like kind of what drove all that from the beginning for me.
Yeah.
So like noticing that need and having a love for coffee in the middle of all of it, kind of joined it all together, found a coffee shop that was leaving. So we took over.
Oh, so you took over an existing coffee shop.
Yeah, it was a coffee shop and hot yoga in the back.
Okay.
It was gross. It was real gross.
That's what people were doing.
The back room was hot, so I understand why they went
after
with
a session of hot yoga, that's what I feel like. It's just a nice steaming cup of.
Have some hot coffee and a breakfast burrito after your hot yoga. I don't know. Maybe people do that. I have never done that. But yeah, so there was this place they had. They were closing down, and we were looking at a space across the street, and we're going to be going against them as competition, which would have been kind of weird. But it was a very different style of business and everything. They were only open like in like late mornings to lunchtime, and then they did hot yoga was their morning thing instead of coffee, which is odd, but whatever.
Okay.
And so in the middle of all that, negotiating a lease for the space across the street, kind of down and across the street, we found out they were going to actually close all the way up. They hadn't been paying rent and doing some stuff, and
so
we took over their space and renovated the whole thing and opened it up.
So I was going to ask, like, what inspired you to do a coffee shop? But was this more like an opportunistic type of thing where you saw an opportunity and just capitalized?
Absolutely. Like at the time, I think it was like 2010, 2011, coffee in Kansas City, like the specialty coffee scene, there was a company called Aldi Correct that had been like kind of pioneering the path of like, they were super strict. Like we do espresso.
Okay.
We do pour over coffees.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like no milk, no flavors, no like, but we're sourcing like incredible coffee.
That's it. But when you say specialty coffee, what is specialty coffee compared to regular
We
coffee?
get super technical with it, but there's like a specific grade point that's specialty coffee. Like when you're grading coffee at export, just like you would grade like other
like meat,
export,
like when you go to
like meat,
like you have like the
that.
premiums and the all that type of grades.
There's like a grading scale, and like I think technically anything over like an 82 point is like specialty coffee. But really specialty coffee, think of like Starbucks would not qualify as specialty coffee, but like Intelligentsia in Chicago and LA, those were some of like the first big specialty coffee places. Blue Bottle would be a specialty coffee.
Okay.
Originally would have been a specialty
Blue
coffee
Bottle, the
place.
one out here in Newport Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've got spaces like all over the US too. So they're like, they would have qualified as a specialty coffee shop, just basically getting outside of what Starbucks did with like
I didn't
huge
even know
lattes and like all the flavors and stuff. But they're like, think like in common people terms, it would be like a specialty coffee. So like you're buying a specific Guatemalan coffee at this space as opposed to just like a huge.
You have your generic commodity coffee.
Yeah.
And then you got your specialty, boutique coffees. Okay. Interesting.
There's where you can dive deep into like rabbit hole of what specialty defines as, but that's just the thing of the place. It's like you've walked in and looked at the menu and there's only like 4-5 coffee items on the menu. At the time, that's kind of what that was for specialty coffee. It's just like a very unique coffee experience where the coffee was the actual star thing.
And that's
the only thing on the menu.
And that's what you guys did? You just started specialty coffee, but didn't do just the 3 or 4? Or?
Yeah, so we started with one thing that was interesting. We brought in, so specialty coffee was evolving, especially out in LA, Chicago, New York, other like even Minneapolis, Minnesota. There's like all these great roasters bringing in really cool coffees from all over the world and roasting them. And they had their cafes there, but there was no place to like really experience other cities. We call it like a multi-roaster cafe, but experience other cities' coffees in Kansas City. There was no multi-roaster space there. We had like Oddly Correct, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And they were local and they pioneered all of that for the rest of us. But so we opened this space as an opportunity to bring coffees from all over the US, create a specialty coffee company and shop, and then bring in a multi-roaster kind of program. So we were bringing coffees from LA, like Handsome Coffee from when they were down here still. Bringing people from all over the US kind of into our space and from Portland and Seattle.
And that void that you recognize, was that just purely kind of, you just saw the need for that, or?
It was a little bit more like consumer style. Like we were, you had to go on the website and buy the coffee and get it to your house, and you spend $20 on a bag, and hopefully it was what you wanted, and maybe share it with your friends, and you start sharing it with a few friends and realize other people like this too. And there's nowhere to buy it. Whole Foods at the time wasn't even really selling coffees like that from other places. So there wasn't a
what
place
time period are we talking about?
It's like 2011.
2011.
Yeah,
okay.
2010, 2011.
Okay.
So that's where that all started. That was my first journey as an entrepreneur and going into that.
It sounds very unique, but at the same time, I mean, you just mentioned quite a few coffee shops. I would imagine there's some challenges in competition.
Yeah.
So was that a big hurdle to get over? I mean, you see coffee shops on every corner, but like you just said, it's different than Starbucks. It's different than this, but I don't think a lot of people know that.
Yeah, I think so. Coffee is weird. We always joke that, like, especially during COVID when everything else was shutting down, but coffee shops for some reason were still able to be like, at least in Kansas City, we were still open. And Kansas City followed a lot of the LA restrictions too. They were kind of mirroring what happened out here on the West Coast. But we're legal drug dealers. Like caffeine is a drug that everyone's addicted to. And so like on top, you got competition, but like at the end of the day, America is a coffee drinking culture, and people need to get their coffee
Except
somewhere.
for I'm drinking tea right here. I'm like the only one in the whole office. Yeah, that drinks tea.
We freaking dump tea into the ocean. No,
That is true.
But caffeine is, I think it's the largest consumed drug in the world, or is
that's one of the largest?
Or is alcohol number one probably? But I thought caffeine was.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of part of it. Like you can have a coffee shop on every corner, and they're gonna do okay. They're gonna survive. So competition is an interesting thing for coffee.
That's kind of fascinating. So you can have almost a saturated market in a way, and they're still gonna do okay.
Yeah. It's getting creative to be profitable on like the other items you're selling, like expanding a food menu and stuff like that to really make it work long term. But
yeah, I feel like you're a little ahead of the wave there too. I mean, you're talking kind of coming right out of the recession there, 2010, 11, 12. You see them now a lot. I mean, especially in LA and even Orange County. I mean, we see a lot of these trendy kind of coffee shops, but I think they only popped up in the last, since 2015 on maybe. So I think you're a little bit ahead of that. So.
Yeah, it was like that was a time in the U.S. and then specifically we were trying to like kind of as things were growing on the West Coast and those coffee companies were starting to form and expand. We were trying to like make something happen in Kansas City too. So
how many shops did you get up to?
That cafe we exited in 2012 or 2013 pretty quickly after, and there was another local coffee company that bought that location. Okay, and they actually still run it to this day. There were some pioneers at that time we weren't roasting. We were just bringing coffee in from everywhere else. And so we exited that. And my business partner at that time went and he opened another coffee shop in South Kansas City in a suburb. And then I moved out to the Missouri side still and opened a actual roasting company and stuff with a great friend of mine.
Okay. Well, so you had a few locations.
Yeah, we had at the end, They have 5 right now, and we had 4 when I moved out here to Kansas City or to California.
I feel like that's got to be a management. I feel like there's some management questions that I need to ask here. Like when you have 4 shops running simultaneously, everybody's been to a coffee shop and you see those baristas behind there going 100 miles an hour. It seems like the operations have to be pretty tight. How did you operate 4 locations at once? What was the change? If you could just talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
I mean, I think in life, like teams are just important. Like having your team together is what like makes you successful. It makes your business successful. What makes the rest of like your employees successful. What makes the community successful. So I think that's like a huge part is just setting your team up really, really well. We did a lot by ourselves as owners and with our spouses and put a lot of weight on all of us as individuals at the beginning. But really we kind of, as we moved through it and expanded, like setting up our management team, treating them well, making sure everybody's like compensated correctly, and making sure that there was like actual passion and vision from ownership was like kind of a huge thing for us. And so, setting our team up was like the only way that we were ever going to do any of that work.
Yeah, for sure.
How was that structured, Don? Because you go from 1, it's easy to know what's going on every day. Yeah. Go to 2, you might be able to figure it out. Go to 3, 4, you don't know what's going on. Like how did that reporting work? Like how'd you set that all up?
That all hinged on our management. So as we started expanding, I think the first 2 we kind of did just with ourselves as owners, and then come shop number 3, it was very much like, all right, we've got to dial up our management tactics and make sure that we're able to work on the business now and not in it as much.
The common entrepreneur or small business owner problem.
Yeah, I think there's like that block team that you're supposed to spend like 30% of your time working on your business and 70% in or something like that. That was a huge thing for us is we have to have our team together to where they can manage like the business stuff and we can be working on it. So, you start scaling up what you're buying and all the consumable products. So we started like, buying pallets of our almond and oat milk alternatives and buying pallets of our cups instead of going to Restaurant Depot and picking stuff up.
The scalability issues and everything. Okay.
All the scalability was like, that was what we had to focus on as ownership. So we needed to have our management team actually making sure that, at the end of the day, every customer that walked in had the same experience they had when it was just me and Levi behind the bar.
That seems like it'd be very, very difficult to replicate in multiple locations, but
it's a challenge for sure. We had a great crew though, and so I think we always hired off character as opposed to skill set, and so having people that you can teach anybody how to make a coffee.
You're a character hire type of person.
100%. I mean, there's people that maybe have. Basic skill sets that they don't have that okay, I like your character. This is not going to work out. But for the most part, if you're like a decent human being and willing to learn, there is a place for you. And I think that was kind of something that we always kind of strive for with our hires and what our management strive for in hiring. And at the end of the day, like I was kind of saying earlier, like it was always about the people. So if the people that we're hiring are going to give the people that come in a good experience and give them the time that they deserve for that quick, minute and a half that you're maybe talking with someone at the counter waiting for your coffee, then like, let's do it. Yeah. We're ready.
I like that. You'll teach them the rest, all the technical details, but can't really teach the friendliness sometimes.
Yeah, I think you could try to teach me how to be a barista for weeks, and I don't think I'm going to get it. I see how fast they move. I see people yelling and doing things. I'm not going to get that. That's like I'm not getting hired.
The worst was people that would come in and be like, so I don't really like coffee, but I wrote it and was like, okay, well, don't lead with that. Where you're hiring, you're coming to a coffee shop for a job.
Oh, you're the employees.
Yeah, we'd have people come in for hiring. I don't really like coffee, but I want to work at a coffee shop. Okay, well that's maybe tea drinking. No, tea's a huge thing now. You go to most coffee shops and tea is like a giant deal on the menu.
For sure.
There's a company called Hugo Tea in Kansas City. They're all over here now too. I think
I'm starting to see them pop up too, man. Like tea shops and different things like that.
He changed my mind though. He was like, you have to spend time on tea. You're missing a demographic. People that come to your shop that are going somewhere else or bringing their own drinks. Just like he did a huge education thing for all of our cafes and kind of changed my mind on how to approach tea in a commercial setting. Yeah.
Did you guys implement that then too?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Good job.
They sourced like incredible teas, and we took the time to like actually kind of understand, the same passion we put behind coffee, we put some of that towards tea as well. And people appreciated it for sure.
Sounds like you have pretty cool journey. I like the opportunistic start of it. But if you had advice for other people trying to start a small business like that, what would you say to them, or what would you have done differently if you could do it over again? Everybody asks me this question all the time. I can't ever really answer it exactly.
This is like something I've carried into adult life. I forget who told me this. It might have been one of the guys, probably from like a nursery or some plant store. But it's like a weird advice thing that like, only ever buy a plant that you care about. Like you want to see that plant flower, like when it gets there, or you want to see it grow, like something that you're excited about. Because otherwise you're not going to take care of it. There's going to be weeks that you're like, yeah, shoot, I forgot to water it, but whatever. That's the stuff that's going to die. So if you're getting into a business and wanting to start a business, make sure it's something you're passionate about. You don't have to be always passionate about just like the outcome of the business or the product you're putting out. That's a great plus. You can be passionate about like the opportunity of the money that's going to come from that for your family, for your other staff, or your portfolio, whatever.
Okay.
But just make sure you're doing something that you're freaking passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about it and you don't love it at the end of the day, at some point, someone's going to understand that and know it. And whether that's a consumer, whether that's employees, whether that's your spouse, whoever, that's just going to start eating away at it at some point. And it's just, it creates a shelf life for the business. That's something I've kind of taken into most things in life.
I've seen that with businesses that we've had in the past. If there's not that passion, or if you can't convey your passion to the people around you, then what's the point?
Yeah.
There was something I read a while ago. It was the CEO of Disney, and he said that as a leader, as an owner, as a CEO, your job is to be able to get other people to see what you see, see your vision, and see your passion.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter how good your ideas are or how hard you work. No one else knows.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. If you don't have it, then it's not gonna.
Then people know that.
people can sense it. I feel like if someone's really into something, you can jump on board. If someone's half in, half out, you can't. It's hard to follow.
Yeah. We had a staff member, shout out to Bria, who in the middle of us expanding, she actually owns her own coffee company now too. That's really cool actually. And so in the middle of expanding, we were like hard on like the business ends of it and like making sure operations were set up. And she was the person in our weekly management meetings who was like, guys, we have to dial in like core values. We have to like give our staff a vision. Like I know you guys personally, and I know the vision of what you're doing, but like there's some communication that needs to happen here. And like, our staff was sensing it. That's like some of the first times we really started struggling with staff issues was in that expansion process.
Yeah.
And making sure that our management really understood, not just like what we were doing on a day-to-day basis, but like, what's the long-term goal here?
That's a struggle with any small business when they're starting up, is kind of what areas. You have a million things on your plate. There's a million areas to focus. And sometimes things get overlooked, like that, like the culture.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something, if you overlook it, it starts to create its own culture on its own. And that's hard to wrangle.
Yeah. Especially remove the owner from it and you're not there every day anymore. And how do you instill that culture into the management system and all those locations? So it's interesting. I think we do have a question that came in though. Was you kind of touched on this a little bit, but kind of that micro economics of a coffee shop, but they wanted to know, what is the factors or most important factors to consider when choosing a location for a coffee shop?
For choosing location, it's all about like the community that it's in. Like we were super community driven in making sure that what we were putting like into a retail space actually had a real like purpose for that community. Like there's already maybe not a coffee shop in that corner. You have a whole like apartment complex or something like that you have to drive a mile or 2 miles to get to a to the local coffee shop or something like that. So like locations, location.
Yeah.
Did you
look at like demographics there? There's a certain age demographic, or everyone?
That's the weird thing about coffee, and it goes back to like everybody drinks coffee. Like you can, as long as you have like an option for people that's on the lower end, like that sub $3, maybe right at $3 cup of coffee.
Okay.
You can kind of serve everyone, which is kind of cool. There's like not a huge need for finding specific demographics for us in those locations, which is cool.
It doesn't matter if it's like on the way to work or something like that on a certain road or certain path stuff.
I mean, that definitely helps. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you went, for morning, like we sat on our main location, sat on a thoroughfare that had like all of our traffic going to work was on our side of the street. So
Yeah, there you go.
Freaking pumping.
Yeah.
We had all the parking to go for everybody. Like that was great. Like that was one of our busiest spots for sure. Another thing that we did, that was pretty important for expanding was partnering with other people, like going into a place that has a lot of like, a lot of vision behind it too. Like we partnered with the public libraries in Kansas City. And so we did.
I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah. With MCPL. So they had like this huge renovation push for all the libraries. And so we partnered with them on a couple of locations. And on top of just like putting coffee shops in a couple of them and being a part of that for the community, we applied ourselves in other areas. Like they did one with a huge restaurant. So like our team was on those design calls with, the rest of the libraries, making sure that, because those architecture firms, they were doing something new for Kansas City, and we were the people kind of involving ourselves and making sure that we could provide coffee spaces. But yeah, we wanted to contribute to the team as a whole, as opposed to just like, here's our little like thing over here, and
that's
we're gonna do our stuff, but y'all do what you want to do.
Yeah.
No, that was never the point.
We've talked a lot about once a coffee shop's going and the operational part of it and some of the maneuvers you made, and I think that's awesome. If someone was going to start a coffee shop or, even a business for the very first time, what was the first steps that they would do? Like the first 3 things, be like, okay, I'm going to start a coffee shop next week. What are the first 1, 2, 3 things I need to do to get the ball rolling? And the reason I ask this is the questions that Bray and I get asked quite a bit about starting a business or starting a company. It doesn't matter if it's a small retail shop or a service. It doesn't matter. It's always that first little step, that how to get things moving.
I don't think this is being a jerk or anything. It's something that if anybody is listening that owns a coffee company, or I'm sure other small businesses too, you get asked, like you get customers that come in and say like, hey, I really want to start a coffee company. Can we talk? Do you have time to talk sometime? I'll come in and just ask you some questions and pick your brain. We got asked that all the time.
Oh, really?
Which is cool. And honestly, like I did that when we were starting it too. But one of the things that I kind of formed into and was maybe shaped by some of the other coffee guys in Kansas City when we were starting out, or like really getting deep into like the business side of it, just like instead of, starting something just to start it. But my advice to someone who's wanting to start a business is like, make a business plan. If you can't sit in your house on your computer and write out a 10-page, 15-page business plan, evaluate all your competition, evaluate what your strengths are as a person, what you need to bring to the team so you can win, you really shouldn't do it. There's like that's the time commitment, the brain power to put behind it, the passion. You're gonna find out real quick, I do love this, I want to do this, or maybe I can't do this, or yeah, I shouldn't do this, and I need to bring someone else in that can help me do it.
I agree with that.
So that was like anybody that would ever come and ask if we could like help them open a coffee shop or do anything like that. My default was always like, how about this? Go make a business plan. Sometimes I would share our business plan with them. So like, go make a business plan, come back to me, and I'll help walk through it with you.
Yeah,
that's kind of like I've kind of carried that through most things the last couple of years too. And I think that's just like a great way. Sit and make your business plan. Start there, because then from there it's all downhill. You've done a ton of work to get all that flushed out. In the middle of that, you're going to create your entire like first 5-year plan. So you're going to lay all that out for yourself, and then Have
you ever had people give you a little pushback when you say that? Because I have.
There's for sure, 100%.
One of our first businesses, as you know, construction management for retail and restaurants around the country. And sometimes we work with a lot of corporate clients and franchisees, franchise partners. You'll get startups and they'll come to us and say that they're almost 5 steps ahead of where they should be.
Yeah.
And when we say, okay, can you, when we have our meeting, can you bring your business plan? And then we'll kind of go from there just to find you a location and put a design together and so forth.
Yeah.
And we sometimes, about 50% of the time, we get some pushback about, well, I don't really need a business plan. I kind of have it. I already know what I'm doing. And that was like a big thing.
Yeah.
And I hate saying this because like, I don't want to sound like a jerk either to a lot of people, but we're getting so good that we could tell what businesses were going to succeed and fail before we even did the work.
Yeah.
So we'd go design them and build them and get them open and things like that. but we almost would know behind the scenes, like, well, this one's going to kill it.
Yeah.
Or this one didn't follow any advice, didn't have a plan, they would go out of business real fast.
Yeah, I think that's like one of those. That's like the same thing that carries into like professional athletes and stuff too. There's for sure one-offs that like you have an idea and you freaking have the right conversation with the right person, and your business is more successful, and you didn't make a business plan until year 2 or whatever. Like that's for sure a thing. Just like there's people who have genuine talent that like they work for it, but at the end of the day, they're just gifted. And they can make it happen. And then there's the people who sit down and do practice the fundamentals, do all the repetition, write their business plan, edit their business plan, bring someone else in it, help them edit the business plan, and then they're wild successful. So like that's
How many people even that you gave that advice to actually came back with a business plan? Said, Tanner, let's sit down and talk about success.
It's like 2 out of 50. Like not very many people, but that's like, I don't think most of those shops that were either like maybe they did end up opening them or like gone now.
Okay.
Or just never came back and never opened.
Yeah.
So I think it's just do that work. You're going to find out real quickly whether or not you're going to be successful while you're writing your business.
There was a stat that we just had learned with just a little bit of market research too. It was like that was 70%, and don't quote me on that. But
42%.
Was it? I think it was higher than that even. It was up there, like why businesses fail in the first couple of years was no demand, no market need for it, right? They didn't even study the market.
Yeah.
Just a great idea that they thought. So business planning will help you kind of do that too. I mean, you can at least study a little bit and figure out like there is a demand to it. Maybe we give this a shot.
And I have a curveball for you. So a huge thing that I kind of preach to people is don't procrastinate and get going. What's the saying that you always say? Procrastination.
That perfection is the enemy.
Perfection is the enemy of profit. So stuff like
progress
that.
and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So when does it
one.
become, like, planning versus I'm afraid to launch and I just keep planning. I keep planning until you don't get anywhere. When is it time to when is it time for action? And time for planning? How do you balance those?
I think it's a little bit of depending on if you're doing it yourself, it's a little bit of like a gut feeling of just like you've done the work to plan for it, and you feel comfortable that like if I go get funded tomorrow, which would be amazing. Whoever's out there looking for funding right now, I'm sure everyone would love that. If I get funded tomorrow, I can do this. My life is in order. My finances are in order. My like work balance is in order. Like I can make this happen. Like let's go.
Yeah. I always tell people to give themselves deadlines.
Yeah.
So even if you just made them up, but if you give yourself a deadline and this is going to be done and I have to be here by September 1st.
Yeah.
Magically you happen. If you give yourself I think Elon Musk said something like that, where it's like you give yourself a week, magically it gets done in a week. You give yourself a year, you magically got done in a year. Yeah. It's like, so
I have business plans literally that we've done that with in the past. It's like, they're still sitting on my computer. We've done nothing with them because there was no deadline for that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have difficulty telling people that sometimes of create a plan, but don't procrastinate.
Yeah,
give yourself a deadline, but it just might be an arbitrary. It's like
you give yourself the deadline, and then you have to start putting all your stuff in order, or you're gonna miss it, and then you never start.
Yeah, I agree. Any big things that you wanted to hit on while we have you here?
I kind of just the same way I started. The people have always been like the thing behind business. Like if we're in business to like make communities better, make people succeed, whether that's just in like being able to wake up to go do their job for the day, or have a place to come when like we had have a place to come when stuff's weird with family while you're visiting in town or something like that, all across the board.
Just get out of the house.
Just to get out of the house. Like if you're focused on people at the end of the day, like that's how the world is better. That's how our communities are better. That's how our businesses are better. That's how we feel better about our businesses. Like, focus on the people, whether that's your little core team or your full on, consumer base. Like if we're focused on people, then like stuff's going to be successful and people will know that. So.
All right. I love that. Thank you so much, Tanner Stevens, for joining us today It was a pleasure having you on the show that you set up for us. and thank you for our listeners for tuning in. Please subscribe and join. And until next time, this is Inside the Hive with Kyle and Brandon.
Thank you.